So I thought I'd finally take a shot at doing the video about how to put track onto the drawing. My original intention was to do this as one video, but as I got into it, it kept getting longer and longer and longer. And I think eventually it would just be a little too long. Here's a list of the 5 longest movies ever made. If I actually made this video the way I wanted it to, the list would actually look like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break video 14 up into different parts. There'll be a video 14, a 14A, a 14B, etc., etc. And I'll just keep adding letters to it as I come up with things I want to talk about how to add things to the drawing. Now we can only hope that I never come up with enough stuff that we actually end up with a video 14ZZ. Okay, enough of this silliness. Let's get into the video. So here you see the drawing of my room for my layout. And this drawing is saved as a separate drawing, so I can always go back to a clean beginning. Now you'll notice the drawing has the wide lines, it has the dimensions in it, it also has some text. And if you come over here and you look at my layers, you'll notice that I have the main heading layer here, new room outline. Then I have this one, room outline dimensions, and then I have this one, light switch location. Now the only layer that we're going to need to have visible is going to be the outline layer. So we're going to turn off the light switch location and the dimensions. Now we're going to lock the layers that we don't want to affect while we're working on this drawing. So we're going to come down here, we're going to lock the light switch, we're going to lock the room outline. And I can't lock this layer because it is actually the active layer right now. So what I can do is I can say add a layer, and that becomes my active layer. Now I'll come up here and I'll lock the room outline. So now all those layers are locked. I can't affect them in any way while I'm working on other things. So now let's add the images. I'm just going to do a little bit of review here. So we're going to add the images. So we're going to rename this layer, and we're going to call it images. And you'll notice I did that wrong, so I have to come up here and I have to put in a 2 because we want these to lay out in order. Now we're going to add another layer, and we'll rename this one 2.1, and we'll call that the main image. We'll add another layer, we'll rename that, and we will call it 2.3 staging track image. All right, now let's go back and we'll make the main image our active layer. We'll click on it. And now let's put in that image. So we'll go up here and we'll go to Insert, and we're going to insert a rectangle. Now one of the things I've done is I've kind of changed my mind. I am not going to take my railroad and have it fill all the way over to this corner. I'm just going to cut it off right here. And I'm going to use this area here for storage. I have a lot of DVDs and records and other things that I would like to put in shelving for. So I'm going to put that in over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this area down here. And I know this wall here is 13 feet and 11/16. And I don't want the railroad to come all the way over, at least not right now. So I'm just going to bring it over 12 feet 9 inches from this corner over here. So that works out to 153 inches. So we want to come up here and we want to put in 153 inches into our width. And we know that this space here is 121.5 inches. So we'll type that in here. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to hit Add Rectangle. So now our rectangle is going to have these dimensions. Now I'm going to go to the center, because that's where rectangles are inserted at. And there's our rectangle. I'm just going to move it over just a tiny bit, and you'll notice it fits in just fine there. It's got an outline, but it does indeed fit. So now we want to load an image into this. And we're going to come down here, and we're going to find our image. Hit open, wait, and there it is. And you'll notice our image is cut off. And I've explained this in the other video. So we're going to come up here and we're going to resize our image to fit our rectangle. And we're going to turn off maintain aspect ratio because I want to resize the image differently in the horizontal and vertical dimensions. So let's turn that off. And then we're going to set our width to 153 and our height to 121.5. And we'll hit enter. And now our image fits into our rectangle. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to move our rectangle over into the corner. Now, this is our origin point up here, 0, 0, but we started our drawing at 12, 12. So we're going to come up here and let's zoom in just so you can see. And we're going to grab this, oops. And we're going to grab this little corner point on our rectangle. And we're going to come over here and we're going to make sure we select move surface because we just want to move the entire rectangle. We don't want to move just the point. We want to move the entire rectangle. Select that. Come up here. We're going to type in 12 and 12. Hit enter. Now our rectangle is right in the corner. It fits perfectly. Zoom out. There's the main part of our layout. Now we need to add in the staging track because there are some crossovers here that go between my track out here and my staging track. So I need to put this image in. Now I turned this into a separate image. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to our staging track image layer. We're going to turn off the main image. And we're just going to repeat that procedure. We're going to put in a rectangle, then we're going to add the image. So let's speed that up. Okay, now we have our lower staging track in place. Now, what I've been doing when I've been working on different designs for this railroad is I always start with the lower level staging track because of these crossovers here. I have to get those positioned in order to let what's on top here display. And you'll notice I went up here and I clicked the main image and you don't see the main image. And the reason is because this image here is on top. So what we want to do is we want to send that one backwards. Now we should be able to turn it on and see that. So now this image, the main image, is on top of the staging track. But I needed to put in the staging track first because that's where those crossovers are for the staging. They're hidden right here. And I needed to be able to see those. Now this time around, I'm not going to show you how I did the staging track. I'm just going to show you what it looked like. So here's the railroad. And what we'll do here is we're going to turn off that image. And you can see my staging track. And I made different sections out of the track and made it different colors just so it's kind of easier to see what is going on there. So if I turn on that image there, you'll see my crossovers kind of line up with the original plan. And I'm not very happy with this. This needs to be reworked. I don't like this section of track here. I don't like the way it's coming out. So I'm going to have to do additional work on that. But for this tutorial video, we're just going to let it stay the way it is. We're just going to live with it. So let's get rid of this guy. And here we are back at our drawing. All right, so let's try and put in some track. And you might notice that there are some odd jump cuts in this video because I'm not recording it the way I usually do. Usually I go from beginning to end, and in this one I'm doing it in multiple segments. So we're going to start up here. And we're going to put in this corner because that's a good place to start. It's a good demonstration. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to add a layer. And we're going to call this 3. And we're going to call it track for the main heading. Then we're going to add another layer, and I'm going to call it 3.1 upper track. And I'm considering this area along here as the upper level. In fact, let's change that to upper level track. That's a little more descriptive. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here is we're going to lose the layers because we don't need it right now. We're just going to make that go away. Remember, if you want it to come back, you can right-click and add it that way. So let's zoom in on this area up here. And we're going to put in this piece of track here. We're going to put in this piece of track here, this switch, and this little siding right here, a little industrial area. So let's grab this. Let's bring that down here. Now we're going to go grab a piece of flex track. We're going to bring it in. And I'm going to do one thing here just because I get forgetful. I'm going to go back to layers. And I'm going to make sure I'm working on the upper level track. And indeed I am. All right. So now let's take this guy here. And we don't need this full length because we just want to put him right here. So let's cut him. Get rid of the connection point. We'll delete that. I'm going to drag him up. And now we're going to position him up here. So we're going to zoom in a little bit more so we can see what the heck we're doing. Now, I don't know what this angle is, so I'm just going to grab the handle here and I'm going to start twisting him until he looks pretty good. I'm going to bring him up here and I'm going to take this section of the end point, these two lines, and I'm going to try and get them on that piece of track there on the drawing. So let's see if we can rotate him a little more like that. That's starting to look pretty good. It doesn't have to be precise. When you turn this into 1-to-1, I mean, you know, you're not going to get it exactly in place. So that doesn't look bad there. I don't think I can make that any better. All right, so let's make sure that's lined up fairly close like we would like it. All right, now I'm going to drag this over. And I'm going to extend this end out a bit. Like that. All right. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's come over here. Let's put in our switch. Now I want to use number 6 switches. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab a number 6 right hand. And I kind of feel like this track is going to run parallel to the wall. So we can set his angle. Come over here. We'll select the endpoint. We'll come up here and we'll say that we want that point to be at 0 degrees. I think we're going to pull him. If we do that, it's going to look a little odd. So I think we're going to pull him back. So let's get him on the line there. And now I can use my up, down, left, right arrow keys to move him around. Now every time I push it, it's going to move about 1/16 of an inch. So I'm just going to hold it down a little bit, and I'm going to position that right there. That's where I'm going to start at. And you're going to find that as you do this, it's pretty much trial and error. You keep trying different things. I already have a piece of track over here, so I'm going to grab that piece of track. I'm going to connect him here. Like that. Now, we want to put a curve in between these 2 points. And just for the heck of it, let's stretch this one out just a tiny bit. So we need to determine what angle we need for a curve here. So grab your calculator and your notepad and let's write down some angles. So the first angle we're going to get, if we're going to go up here, I'm going to grab this angle. See if we can grab it. Yes, we did. And we see that angle is 86.25 degrees. So write down 86.25. Now we need to know this angle here. So let's go look at this guy. And what do we got? We got 170.47. So write that down. Now we're going to subtract 86.25 from 170.47, and we get 84.22 degrees. I'm going to write that down because I have a terrible memory. Now I'm going to go grab another piece of track. Bring it over here, right click, and I'm going to say curve that piece of flex. And I'm going to put in 84.22 degrees. Now, I have no idea what this radius is. I'm just going to guess. And I want my minimum radius to be 24 inches. So let's say we want to make it a little wider. So let's make it 25 inches there and see what that looks like. Curve our piece of track. Oops, let's grab him. Spin him around a little bit here. Let's just drag him up and see if it looks like it might work. And boy, it sure looks like it might work, doesn't it? All right. Now comes the fun part. Well, it's all fun, but, you know, this is even more fun, I guess. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our layers back on. And we want to lose the upper level image. We don't need it for what we're going to do right now. So we're going to turn it off. We're still working on the upper level track. We also need to turn off that lower image, don't we? Let's make that go away. All right, now come up here and we're going to turn these into center lines. We don't want to see the whole track. And we're just going to come up here and we're going to try and get that as close as we can. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to zoom in. And I think that looks pretty good. One thing I could do is I could come here and I could set this endpoint to be the same as this piece of track here. In fact, let's do that. Probably should have done that in the first place. So go back over here and we're looking at an angle of 86.25. So let's go up and copy that. We're just going to do a Control C. Then we're going to zoom in here on this guy. And it doesn't work on this end. I'd have to do some math, so let's not do that. Let's do this end. This end is probably easier. Let's look at that. 170.47. And that's 167.76. So let's copy that one. Sometimes you just have to go back and forth between the ends to get it to do exactly what you want to do. And we'll just do a Control V and we'll hit enter. And that should rotate that guy right into place. And we can come up here and now we look at it and we can start moving this guy down. So I'm just going to use my up down key and just push him down a little bit. I'm going to move in a little bit more. Now, if you want more precision, hold down the Shift key. Right now we're moving in 1/16 of an inch. If I hold down the Shift key, I'm going to start moving in 30 seconds. So we'll see if we can get that to line up. So there's, it is like that. There it is like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Let's try 3. Zoom out. Let's come over here. Now we want to move it to the left. So we'll use our arrow key. That's pretty close right there. Hold down the Shift key. Come back up. Look here. Still looks like it's on. Let's zoom out. Now, we'll go grab our endpoints. We don't have to use the Shift key. We don't care if it moves a little bit. Let's connect it. And then hover over that piece of track. And you look down the bottom and it says the minimum radius is 0. So this is a straight piece of track leading into there. Let's grab this guy. See what happens here. Hover over. It says the radius is 4,482 and 15/16 inch. So again, this is essentially a straight piece of track. So you've now put your curve in here. So now let's put in our little industrial siding here. Let's see how that works. So I'm going to turn the main image back on because I kind of want to see what we're doing. And you'll notice it doesn't line up with the original track plan, but who cares? And I'm also going to put it back to track because it's a little bit easier to see. And sharp-eyed viewers might notice a problem up here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, let's put this piece of track in. So let's go grab a piece of flex. And let's cut it somewhere in here. If I can find it, there it is. We'll delete that connection point. Come over here, we're just going to connect it. I'll grab this. I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to grab my handles. Hover over it, look down at the bottom. I've got 24 5/8 inch radius at that point. So that looks pretty darn good. Another thing I could have done is I could have taken a piece of flex and I could have made it straight along here and then worked a curve in coming off of the switch. But for right now, I think we'll leave that because it demonstrates how to put that in. Okay, before we end this video, I want to go back and show you the mistake I made in the example I was just showing you. I don't want to lead you astray, and somebody might pick up on the error and say, well, why didn't you point that out? When I put this little piece of track in here, I just grabbed the endpoint and I dragged it down. And sometimes AnyRail does kind of odd things when you take a piece of track and you make it shorter. See how it starts to fold in on itself like that? Let's put that right back like that. And if you hover over this piece of track, it says the minimum radius is 0. Actually, if it's a straight piece of track, it should not have anything down there where it says R minimum. So I'm going to show you how to get around that. I'm going to take that piece of track. See, now when I select it, see how big it is? So it's actually folded back in on itself. So let's get rid of that piece of track. Now we want to put a piece of track here. So we're just going to come over here. We're going to grab this guy. And we're going to cut a small piece of track. And we're going to drag it over. And we're going to connect it up. And now I'm going to grab the end and I'm going to connect it. And now when I hover over it, you'll see that the radius is 45 1/16. So now it's kind of acting like an easement into this curve. So that's actually the proper way to do it. You don't want to grab it and fold it back too, oops. You don't want to grab it and fold it back too far because like I said, it starts to be weird like that. And if you do know the distance between this, you can always cut a piece of track, pull it down, and then say, I want a straight piece of flex and I want it to be 3.5 inches. And you just type it in, hit OK, and now you've got that piece. So, glad I cleared that up. Okay, that's long enough for this one video, so let's stop here. And we'll pick it up in the next video, and that will be video 14A. And I think we'll do a passing sighting on a curve in that video. So we'll see you in the next one.